In 1950, a plan was promoted to raise the entire market and turn it into a gigantic parking structure, department stores, and a rooftop park. Nothing came of the plan, but then neither did efforts to revitalize the market. So for the next decade, it languished. Then in 1963, a Seattle business group called the Central Association created yet another plan to tear down the market and replace it with several high-rise office buildings, a park, a hotel, and, of course, an even bigger parking structure than was proposed in 1950. Unlike other attempts, this time the momentum to replace the market with modern structures was gaining strength. Urban renewal was the talk of the day. A group of market loyalists who saw the urban renewal plan as a major disaster for the future of Seattle was formed at that time. They were called Friends of the Market, and they vowed not to stand idly by while Seattle replaced its grandmother with a chorus girl, as Victor Steinbrueck, one of the founders of the group, put it. Victor ultimately became the standard bearer for the Save the Market campaign, a battle that was to last nearly a decade. He was a longtime Seattle resident and activist who was on the faculty at the University of Washington and had helped design the Space Needle for the 1962 World's Fair. He and the Friends of the Market waged the good fight to keep the market as a functional entity for the future of Seattle.
There was this investment group of about 25 of the best people in the city who were determined to take advantage of urban renewal as a real estate bonanza.
Years passed as those who proposed urban renewal were opposed by the Friends of the Market. Originally, the Friends were not having much luck in their efforts, and to make matters worse for the Friends of the Market, the two Seattle daily papers lined up against them.
Working against us was the pretty bad condition of the market. Properties that had been ill-maintained over quite a long period of time. Tim Hill was really the only city council person who was openly sympathetic to us. And we had a huge rally of people when the urban renewal came to the city council. By that time, we had found out who the investment group was, and we picked their places.
Finally, the city mayor, Dorm Brayman, who had been working since 1962 to replace the market, in 1968 denounced it as a decadent, solemn fire trap. The market's days looked like they were numbered. It was obvious something needed to happen, and for those who wanted new development, the most obvious thing looked to be demolition. In May of 1971, it was announced that the urban renewal project to destroy the market and replace it had received a commitment of $28 million in federal funding. But in an end move that was dazzling in its originality, Victor and the organization Friends of the Market proposed a referendum that month to declare the 9-acre market an historic district, ending any hope of urban renewal.
The initiatives had not been done very often in Seattle prior to that. That was in, I think, 1971.
A bitter political battle for votes ensued. The developers and City Hall fought against the initiative. After months of furious campaigning, when the Seattle voters went to the polls in November, they overwhelmingly passed the initiative. The market had been saved. In the 1970s, a PDA was established to carry out the policies created with the passage of the Historic District Initiative. In the early 1980s, the PDA got involved in what they thought was a sure, no-risk moneymaker for the market. Since they were a nonprofit and had no use for it, they sold the right to use the market as a tax shelter to a New York-based investment partnership called the Urban Group. But over time, Congress rescinded the laws, and the Urban Group, having lost their tax credits, decided it was time to exercise their paper ownership of the market in order to squeeze money out of it. In an interesting twist of fate, one of the champions for the market this time was Peter Steinbrueck, son of Victor Steinbrueck.
My dad had sort of handpicked me as a watchdog for the market by appointing me to the Historic Commission in 1983. And during my term there, I had no idea that, that the tax credits to the buildings had been sold to New York investors.
The shock turned to complete dismay as Seattle awoke to the claims that an investment group with no concern about the market's history or importance to the region now owned it.
One by one, every building under public ownership was sold to these New York investors. And I just about flipped when I heard all those things.
So Peter resigned his post on the Pike Place Historic Commission and formed a group called the Citizens Alliance to once again save the market.
I was trying desperately to get the city to challenge these guys. And it seemed that no one was willing to take them on with the intent of running them out of town, the urban group.
Legal volley after legal volley was fired. The process was complicated, time-consuming, and expensive.
It was our pleading with Judge Sullivan that declared that the contracts were void.
Settlements were made, and the Citizens Alliance mandated amendments to the PDA's charter that stated in no uncertain terms that the PDA held the market in public trust.
Well, my children and I make sure come down here and enjoy and see the market, and I'm teaching them a little bit at a time our family's role in saving the market, and I hope that there will be another generation of Steinbruecks to at least provide some oversight and protection for the market. Good catch! We should never have to fight a battle like that again.